Welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck. You've got Carmen and me, Patty, in studio today, and Mary is way off in Washburn for the My Hometown series. I'm so excited. I love this series.
Yeah, hello, Washburn.
Yes, we love small towns in North Dakota. We really believe it's the backbone of this state.
Amen.
Before we go to Mary, I want to thank the sponsors of this My Hometown segment. We have Scott's Hardware, Roland Rebel Boutique, The Weathered Silo, Linda Law Office, Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You, Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77, McLean County Implement, Mike Nelson, Farmers Union Insurance, and the Wagon Wheel Lumber. Thank you all for sponsoring My Hometown in Washburn today. Mary, let's go to you.
Thanks, ladies. We are in Washburn today with My Hometown, and you are going to love this show. We have so much lined up. First of all, I want to do a shout out to Jenny Shower. She has Cafe 77 right here in Washburn. So if you're ever in the area and you need a good home cooked meal, check out Jenny Shower at Cafe 77. I'm sitting here right now with Melisa Chrest, and Melisa has a lot of history on the beginnings of Washburn, and we're talking before it was even a town. We're talking about Fort Mandan and a little bit about Lewis and Clark. So Melisa, why don't you go ahead and tell us some of the history of the Lewis and Clark expedition as well as Fort Mandan?
Sure. Lewis and Clark were some of the first people that were here in this area other than the Native Americans. They actually arrived here in 1804, so more than 200 years ago. We do have a wonderful museum out here dedicated to the Lewis and Clark expedition, as well as other exhibits, and also a replica of Fort Mandan. The fort is built just like it was built for Lewis and Clark 200 years ago when they were here. We have some wonderful interpreters out there. We're all nationally certified interpreters. We give great tours. We give you history of the fort. We give you history on Lewis and Clark. We give you history on the Mandan and the Hidatsa. So definitely a lot of stuff. Come stop in and see us, and we'll do our best to have you learn anything new that you're interested in with Lewis and Clark.
Sure. So when you talk about Lewis and Clark and the fort, actually, this was a big trading route years ago.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the trading route and where the trappers came and what they were trapping in the area.
Yeah, so this was actually a very busy area on the river. A lot of commerce was happening here. There were 5 villages of Mandan and Hidatsa right here within probably about a 10-mile radius of each other. The population of those villages was around 4,000 people at that time. That does rival Washington, D.C. back at that time in 1804. So it was kind of like a city on the river is what it was. A lot of trading that was happening between the different Native American tribes, as well as trading happening with the French that would come down from Canada. They would trade for food, trading for furs. One of the main reasons for the Lewis and Clark expedition was to try and encourage peace between the tribes, as well as peace with white men, ultimately to build fur trading posts along the river. Those fur trading posts were, the reason for them was to bring, European goods and things that the Native Americans didn't have, kettles and cooking pots and things like that would make their life easier. And so Lewis and Clark were kind of some of the first people here to really encourage that and get that started as well.
And so didn't they also pick up Sacagawea right here in Washburn?
That is correct, yes. Sacagawea was actually a Shoshone, born as a Shoshone. She had been abducted when she was around 9 or 10 years old by the Hidatsa tribe that lived right here near where we're at today in present-day Washburn. So she had been living with the Hidatsa for about 5 years at this point. When Lewis and Clark arrived here, they needed an interpreter to translate the Hidatsa language, and they actually employed her husband, Toussaint Charbonneau. So he moved into Fort Mandan, brought his wife with him, Sacagawea. He also brought his other wife with. He was married to 2 women at the same time. But yes, she did join the Lewis and Clark expedition right here at Fort Mandan. and ended up continuing on with them all the way out to the Pacific Ocean and returned back to the Hidatsa tribe then the following year when Lewis and Clark came by this area again.
And so there's a discrepancy on how to say Sakakawea. We grew up saying Sakakawea. Some people say Sacagawea.
Correct.
If you're not from the area. What
Correct.
is the proper pronunciation of Sakakawea?
We don't know. The short answer is we don't know for sure. So Sacagawea has been the most used version of her name for 150 years. And that came from the original journals of Lewis and Clark. They were edited when they got back off the expedition, and the editor wrote her name to sound like Sacagawea. We do believe that is a closer translation of the Shoshone version of her name. However, in the last probably 50 or 60 years, I would say there's been a lot more research into the Lewis and Clark expedition, into Sakagawea specifically. We here in North Dakota are in the minority using Sakagawea as the pronunciation of her name, but we do believe that that is closer to the Hidatsa version of her name. Her name in English means bird woman, and that came directly from her mouth. She told Charbonneau that's what her name meant in English. And so talking to elders of the tribe, language experts, they have determined that Sakagawea is more closely going to be more accurate for her name. The problem is when you've got history of 150 years of saying Sacagawea, it's tough to change people's opinions. So
Exactly, I understand that.
So we all say it when we give our tours, as long as we know we're talking about the same lady, it's all good.
Awesome, that's fantastic. And so let's talk a little bit back on Lewis and Clark then. They were actually looking for a route, a trade route all the way out to the ocean, and they were hoping to find it on one river, is that correct?
That's correct.
And
Yes.
Did they run into problems?
Yeah, the Rocky Mountains. Obviously, the Rocky Mountains were huge. These guys all came from Tennessee and Kentucky. They were used to the Great Smoky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, which are not nearly as extensive as the Rocky Mountains. And so, yeah, they were hoping to open this all-water route for trade with China, India. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. The good news is they were on this expedition. Lewis, Clark, and 6 other members of the expedition kept journals, and so we have a wealth of knowledge about the entire expedition, everything that they encountered, from the plants, the animals, the different cultures that they encountered. So we learned so much more from the expedition than just what they were looking for that water route. So.
And so how long did Lewis and Clark actually stay in the area?
They were here at Fort Mandan in the winter from 1804 to 1805 for 156 days. So.
And then did they also stay here on their way home?
They didn't. On the return trip, they were here for just a few days, and that was just to drop Sakagawea and Charbonneau back off at the Hidatsa village. And then they'd been gone for over 2 years. They were headed home, so they didn't want to stick around. They did take a look at the fort. At that point, the original Fort Mandan had burned down from when they had left the previous spring. So they were headed home. They stopped to visit and say hi to their friends, and that was it.
And so was Fort Mandan ever rebuilt, the original fort?
The original fort was not, just our replica that we have here that was built in 1972.
1972.
Yep.
Wow. A lot of information, and obviously we can't get to it all in one segment, but if you viewers are out there and you want a place to go this summer, check it out right here in Washburn, North Dakota. So back to you, ladies.
Wow.
Interesting.
You bet, you bet.
That's what I love about the My Hometown series is we get a little bit more of the history. Interesting about whether it's Sakakawea or Sacagawea, because in Oregon where I lived, it's Sacagawea, and now it's Sakakawea. So it's nice to know. I think we got it right here in North Dakota, right?
Right. Well, I have to say that my husband read a whole book of the whole history of Lewis and Clark, and his big thing, we'll sit down to eat, and it's one of the funny things for our family get-togethers. Do you know how much these guys ate every day? 10 pounds of meat every day.
Wow.
And he always has to tell that story. Just
Not
for
a
joke.
vegetarian
Yeah,
among them.
right.
So.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to be back and learn more about Washburn right after these messages with Ladies of Another View on Back.
My Hometown is presented by the following: Scott's Hardware, Roland Rebel Boutique, The Weathered Silo, Lindell Law Office.
In times like these, it's good to know there's a place where people know who you are, no matter how long you've been gone. A place where the smells of home cooking are still in the air, where a simple wave warms your heart, and sharing stories with family, friends, and your community is just a way of life. Yes, in times like these, it's good to be home. Farmers Union Insurance, protecting what's important in life.
Hop in the rig and go down the road with me. We'll cover local and national stories that impact you. Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp weekdays at 5:30 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
My Hometown is presented by the following: Scott's Hardware, Roland Rebel Boutique, The Weathered Silo, Lindell Law Office.
Hi, welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And before we learn a little bit more about Washburn, I want to thank the sponsors once again: Scott's Hardware, Roland Rebel Boutique, The Weathered Silo, Lindell Law Office, Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You, Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77, McLean County Implement, Mike Nelson, Farmers Union Insurance, and the Wagon Wheel Lumber. It means a lot to have those sponsors, or we wouldn't be able to do the My Hometown segments.
Yeah. Thank you to all of them very, very much.
Yeah, because we love these segments. You know, we're learning a lot as we go along and really paying tribute to these amazing hometowns.
You bet, you bet.
So with that, let's go back to Mary in Washburn.
Thanks, ladies. We're back here in Washburn, North Dakota at Cafe 77. If you need a ice cream cone or a shake or anything on your road trip, stop in at Cafe 77 right here in Washburn. I'm sitting here now with Tom Merkel. He is a bit of a historian right here in Washburn. He was a barber for 60 years. But before we get to the local or the more current history, Tom, I'm gonna just tell a little bit about the very distant history. First of all, you all may have heard about the Painted Woods golf course, or the Painted Woods, just on the outskirts here of Washburn. Well, that came to be after I was doing my history with the McLean County Museum, which is right across the street, by the way. The Native Americans used to come here and leave warnings to each other. They used to, it was kind of like a marking as to this is my territory, or they would send messages and actually leave them on the trees, these big old cottonwood trees. They would carve in them or paint on them. And that, unfortunately, there was a forest forest fire in 1952. So 1852. There was a fire, and so all of that was destroyed at that time. But that was a big settlement. There was actually a Jewish settlement in the Painted Woods area, and that's part of the history that a lot of even the locals weren't familiar with. But it was a Jewish settlement, and they didn't last very long. They weren't used to farm labor. They were more tradesmen, that type of. They had trades. And so that didn't last very long. But then we fast forward to John Satterlin, and John Satterlin had some land up this way, and he is the one that actually founded Washburn. And I want to say the year it came into being was 1882. And the reason that Washburn is a little bit older than a lot of the surrounding communities is because Washburn is a river town instead of a railroad town. Although the railroad did come through, it started out as a river town, so they had the ferry boats and the steamboats and the paddle boats going up and down and trading on the river. But it was really interesting because when John went to Minneapolis to make claim to his land, they said the Miller Brewing Company had already taken stake on that land. He said, well, why would they want it? Well, it was very rich soil, and they wanted barley for their brewery down in Bismarck. And so they kind of had a little bit of a battle, and John won, but he liked this area because of the way it was situated. There was a deep river, there was a sandy part where they could dock the boats or the steamboats. The paddle boats were here. It was just unbelievable. So, but now, Tom, you're more, say this last 60 years, you were a barber right here in Washburn, and also a veteran, and I do want to thank you for your service, first of all. But tell us a little bit about what you remember in the last 60 years of Washburn.
Oh, it's really growing somewhat. You know, when I first came here, it was about 700 population. Then when the power plant went in out here, it went up to about 1,800.
So what year did you come here?
1958.
Okay, and where did you come from?
Tioga.
Tioga. So you were part of the whole movement, same like center with the different mines and power plants?
Yep. But that was up and down.
Up and down?
Yep.
Sure. And so your wife was a bit of a historian as well, is that correct?
The wife was a big historian. She worked a lot of genealogy, how the country was settled around here. She worked on that. Like out here beyond Painted Woods, there was a lot of settlements out there. There was one black man that came out there and made a settlement out there. And the Wing family was a big family. They were out there, and the Wing cemetery is out there. And that's where this all started. And there's a black man is buried at that cemetery out there, and let's see, and there's an unknown soldier buried out in that cemetery.
Interesting. And so it would have been a freed slave, I'm guessing.
I suppose it was, yep.
Do you know any history about that?
No, I don't.
You don't. So, and your wife sadly has passed.
Yes, she has passed.
But she did a lot of history. So tell us a little bit about the economic development that you have seen in the last 60 years. Like you helped with the swimming pool and the 4-H camp, and I understand that there's just all kinds of things that brought people in.
Golf course, yes. We was really involved in the golf course when that was built. The first swimming pool, we raised money. We raised money all winter. We even raffled off a car one winter, and by the time we were ready to let the contract for the swimming pool, we had enough money to pay for it.
Oh, that's
and that was all due to a lot of volunteer work. And I was at the dedication. I was dressed in a Hawaiian style deal at the dedication of our first swimming pool.
Oh, fantastic. And so you were also involved with the 4-H camp, is that right?
Yes, I was involved out there too somewhat.
And that's about 60 years ago?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Also was involved with the
golf course?
Golf course and interpretive center too.
Oh, okay. So everything that wants to preserve history or entertain people, to keep people from leaving a small town, you had your fingers in it.
Pretty much so, yep.
Awesome.
If I didn't, my wife did.
Awesome. And so with her, she was a bit of a historian, but then there were other economic developments. I know you guys had a movie theater. You guys had, what, 4 or 5 grocery stores?
Yes, we did.
Tell us a little bit about how, during the boom.
Grocery stores, we had 4 grocery stores here at one time, 3 taverns. But I remember the first year we were here, and we came in December, and in November the grocery store burned out, a tavern burned down, and I was only not even a half a block, living only a fourth of a block from the place when they burned.
Wow.
So I didn't know what I was going to do in Washburn, but it all was settled down good.
Sure.
Yeah, but there was a movie theater in town at that time. Oh, there were a couple of hardware stores. There was even a gamble store in town at that time. Yes.
And I understand you still have a hardware store here
Yes, we
today.
do have a hardware store. Oh, yes.
And they are also an advertiser right here on the show. And they said COVID was a blessing for them because it kept people in the small town. So, Tom, we really appreciate you sharing your memories with us today. And unfortunately, we have run out of time. But if you guys want any more history, just come on up to Washburn. The McLean County Museum is phenomenal with the information. Back to you, ladies.
Thanks, Mary. And we're going to have much more about Washburn right after these messages with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
My Hometown is presented by the following: Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You.
In times like these, it's good to know there's a place where people know who you are, no matter how long you've been gone. A place where the smells of home cooking are still in the air, where a simple wave warms your heart, and sharing stories with family, friends, and your community is just a way of life. Yes, in times like these, it's good to be home. Farmers Union Insurance, protecting what's important in life.
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York-style pizza. We also feature Heroes, with the region's only Hero meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go, we deliver for you.
Ever been in a cave before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the car! How will we? The car! Your offer has been accepted. Ever bought a house before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the closing. But how will we? The closing!
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got my pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
My Hometown is presented by the following: Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You.
I'd like to welcome you back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And it's been so fun to hear this history and hear about Washburn. One of the things that the last segment that we heard from Mr. Merkel is that we as a community raised the money to build the pool. They didn't go to some government agency and say, can we get a grant? Can we do this? I mean, who's going to pay for this? They got it together as a community and raised the money. That's great to hear.
I love it.
That's kind of the switch that's gone on in our society, and I love that, you know, pay your own way stuff. So at this point, I would really like to thank all the hometown sponsors for this show in Washburn: Scott's Hardware, the Rolling Rebel Boutique, the Weathered Silo, Lindell Law Office, Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You, Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77, McLean County Implement, Mike Nelson with Farmers Union Insurance, and the Wagon Wheel Lumber. And we're going to fire it right back to Mary and see what's next.
Thanks, ladies. We are in Washburn, North Dakota for my hometown at Cafe 77. If you need a cold drink of water, this is where you'll find it, along with great home-cooked food. I am sitting with Janel Olson, and she is a little bit of a town treasure as well. Her great uncle actually built the last paddle boat, the paddle boat / ferry boat right here in Washburn. But before we get to that, I wanted to point out a few more facts about Washburn. It was so interesting because it was an ideal place to build a new town. It's out on kind of two land jetties, they call them benches, two land benches, but it's halfway between Bismarck and Fort Stevenson, so it was a good halfway point. But the river right here, they had a natural river harbor for all the paddle boats and steamboats, and it was super deep, so it was really deep enough for all the steamboats. Further up, there was a wide beach where they could do the dry docking, and the entire area was underlaid with, guess what? Coal. And to this day, coal is also what drives Washburn. But it was so interesting. I wanted to say back in 1882, in April, the next spring, that after the town was actually come to be, they had 8 carloads of lumber, and within a few weeks they already had a store set up with living quarters in the back end of the store, and that's how Washburn got started, right here on the riverbank. And it's interesting because you can come through Washburn, and there's one of the old log homes on the east end of town, and it was built in 1869. I just drove by that today. So lots and lots of history here. So anyway, I'm sitting with Janel. Enough about my chatter. We're sitting with Janel, and your great uncle was Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, and so tell us about your great uncle.
Well, as a child, I remember Uncle Oscar as being a really tall man and a man of few words, especially with kids. He was very generous with children. He loved children, but I was a little afraid of him because he was so tall, and he had a very stately look about him all the time. But he was a fun man, as I heard, when he was younger, and as he got older, he got a little bit more in tune to himself and his business and so on. But he was always just fun to be around.
Awesome. So I had done a little bit of history on him, and he was actually, he had worked on and around all the paddle wheelers, but he had a career with the U.S. merchant ships, and he was sailing and commanding vessels around the world. And so then he decides to come back to Washburn and go ahead and build his own paddle boat just from scratch. Just went ahead and built a paddle boat. I mean, who does that, right? And that was in 1952. He came back to build that paddle boat. So tell us, you kind of grew up on that paddle boat. Tell us about the paddle boat.
Well, one of the things, first of all, with Uncle Oscar was he loved the water. He absolutely loved the water. That was his passion. So as I understand, when he started to build it, I was just tiny, and so I wasn't in on that part of it. But I do know that my mom and dad talked about it a lot. His passion was to continue to be on the water. He loved the water. He wanted to do something, and at that time there was no bridge to get across to the river. So if you needed to go to Hensler or Center or Hazen, you had to drive all the way up to the Garrison Dam and go across and then come back the same way. So in the summertime, Uncle Oscar, when he got his ferry boat built, he would take passengers, cars, and people on foot, and take them from Washburn across the river so that they could get to those other small towns. and that's the way that he did. That was his life from the spring till the fall, till it got too cold. Then the boat wouldn't go because the ice was forming.
And so how did people find out, or how did they book a trip on the ferry boat? Like, what did they do to get on that ferry boat?
I think they just showed up. Sometimes people would plan ahead, and they'd plan their vacations, and they would say, or not vacations, but they would plan their trips across the river to go purchase cattle or something like that. And someone, they'd go down to the ferry and just talk to him and make a date. But most of the time, it was you just showed up, and if he had one car to go across, that was great. If he had 4 cars to go across, that was okay too.
And so how did they come back?
Same way. If they were across the river, they would either toot their horns, or if it was at nighttime, they would flash their lights and toot the horns to let Uncle Oscar know that they were ready to come back across the river.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And so I understand that he also had living quarters on that paddle boat.
He did. In the summertime, he did, especially if there was a lot of traffic that was planned to go across the river. He would sleep on the boat, and then he would go over. When he would go across, he would have to go a little upstream, because he'd have to turn that ferry boat around in order to get positioned correctly so the cars could then come on to the ferry boat itself. And then it'd pretty much slide right across, because the current was taking them down the river.
And so, I should have researched this, but what year did the dam go in, Garrison Dam?
Oh, I'm not really sure.
Was that in the 40s? I can't remember, but so that ferry boat was after the Garrison Dam went in?
Yeah, I think it was like 1954.
Okay, okay, awesome. And then so he worked that until 1962. I understand he hit a stump.
He was going downriver, and I believe he was going to Bismarck. I mean, I was still pretty young in those days too, but I mean, I wasn't paying as much attention to the ferry boat. I was getting a little bit older, but he didn't even get to Bismarck. He hit a snag. The water was low. They hit a snag, and it put a hole in the bottom of the boat.
Wow. So there's a little bit of history in this a short history of the Sioux. And I wanted to also mention he named it the Sioux in honor of the Native Americans that were from the area.
Yes.
And what an honor that is. And it said that in this little flyer, or when I did my research, that he was going to make a round trip, the last trip down to Bismarck and back. And that's when he hit the snag and decided it's time to retire.
Right.
It's time to retire. All right. So, were there any special memories that you have of the boat? We only have about a minute left.
When I didn't have anything to do in the summertime, I would walk down to the ferry boat, and I would just ride back and forth with him. You know, that if there was where he was operating the boat was a higher level, and the kids couldn't go up there. He wouldn't let the kids up. But I'd just ride back all the afternoon long on the ferry boat, back and forth, and it was just great fun.
And do you remember, excuse me, do you remember what he charged?
I don't. Okay. It was per car, and I think it might have been $1 or not very much.
Probably less for people. All right, so it was a 60-foot long. It was a prime riverboat town during the golden era of paddle wheelers. And Janel, we really appreciate you taking your time today to tell us all about the last paddle wheeler right here on the Missouri River. Back to you, ladies.
Thank you. So interesting, building your own paddle boat and operating it.
Right.
To
oh
take
my gosh.
cars.
And to think that was going on, I don't know about anybody, how many of our audience are my age, but that went on during my lifetime. Having that still have to be ferrying people because there were no roads that were easily accessible, or you had to go the long way around. But I was wondering, with our viewers, how many of you actually maybe you can hit our Facebook page and post, or have your daughter, son-in-law, whoever, but how many of you rode on this ferry? It would be wonderful to hear from you all. Anybody who took a ride on the ferry. And then also I wondered, it didn't get covered in the interview, but did they shut down for weather? I know sometimes the Missouri can get pretty bumpy when the wind comes up, and I wonder if he ever had to shut down because of that.
So share any of your thoughts. We have our email address right down below, anotherview@becknews.com. We'd love to hear from you, especially if you rode the ferry boat back in the day. And we'll be right back to learn more about Washburn after these messages with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
My Hometown is presented by the following: Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77.
In times like these, it's good to know there's a place where people know who you are, no matter how long you've been gone. A place where the smells of home cooking are still in the air, where a simple wave warms your heart, and sharing stories with family, friends, and your community is just a way of life. Yes, in times like these, it's good to be home. Farmers Union Insurance, protecting what's important in life.
Hop in the rig and go down the road with me. We'll cover local and national stories that impact you. Down the Road with Joel Heitkamp weekdays at 5:30 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
At Beck Communications, we've been planning for your future. Over the past decade, we've placed nearly 200,000 miles of dedicated fiber optics in the ground. Enough fiber optic strands to circle the world 8 times. Taking no shortcuts, we connected every home and business in our service area with dedicated fiber optics. It's your personal, unrestricted, unthrottled connection to the world. Best of all, this dedicated fiber means you do not share your connection. We call this intimate dedicated connection Beck Fiber.
I'm Rick Becker from No Apologies. Welcome to your after hours oasis of sanity. Watch us weeknights at 9 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Hey Bucks fans, if you're planning an outing, birthday, or employee appreciation night, then bring your group out to the Buck Stop for a night of fast-paced, high-scoring football. Your group will receive discounted tickets, options for reserved seating, scoreboard messages, VIP services, swag, and a space to gather during the game. You can also participate in pre-game ceremonies, halftime entertainment, in-game contests, and more. Call 701-595-0771 or visit bismarckbucks.com/tickets. All GA is first come, first serve. We'll see you on the turf. Go Bucks.
My Hometown is presented by the following: Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck, and all of our viewers. We're so happy to have you. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this edition of My Hometown series in Washburn, North Dakota. Scott's Hardware, Roland Rebel Boutique, The Weathered Silo, Lindell Law Office, Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You, Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77, McLean County Implement, Mike Nelson with Farmers Union Insurance, and Wagon Wheel Lumber. And we're just going to fire it right on back to Mary. Ready, set, go.
Thanks, ladies. We are in Washburn, North Dakota at Cafe 77, and I don't even want to leave. I've learned so much here today. Right now I'm sitting with Calla Edwards. She is the McLean County Extension Agent. But before we start visiting, we learned a few more facts during the break. There is a paddle boat that was called the Abner O'Neill, and it was hauling 9,000 bushels of wheat from Washburn down to Mandan to the elevator, and it hit a snag, which was probably a big cottonwood tree. It could have been a rock, but hit a snag and it sunk. And during the times where there's low water in the river, to this day, you can still see that. And it sank on July 17th, 1892. Yes, 1892, and you can still see it right here in Washburn at Low River. They see it with aerial photos and whatnot, but it's right out front here. And so when I say that you need to come to Washburn, you really need to come to Washburn. This town is amazing. And I tell you what, I want to call her my friend, Janel Olson. She's at the McLean County Museum right across the street from here. And that museum has more history than we could even cover in a week's worth of shows. So get up to Washburn. come check them out. There's so much history right here, and it's just a stone's throw from Bismarck. So anyway, Calla,
yes,
you are the extension agent right up here.
Yes.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about the 4-H camp, because that's a pretty big deal up here.
Okay. So the Washburn 4-H camp actually, historically there were 2 camps. There was the one based here in Washburn, and then there was also one on the eastern half of the state. And originally, kids in the eastern side of the state went to the one, and then this one serviced the western half. The Eastern 4-H camp closed and was sold several years ago, but the North Dakota 4-H Foundation runs what was formerly the Western 4-H camp. It is now the North Dakota 4-H camp. We just celebrated 50 years in 2017, so we're working on 54 years of camps this year.
Wow.
But usually we run camps from the end of May all the way through August. Everything from tractor safety camp for youth to learn how to safely drive a tractor. They actually have to have a certificate if they don't have a driver's license to work for somebody else. We just got done with the Wish I Had a Horse camp. That's for youth 9 to 11 that don't have a horse. They want to learn how to ride. We have a wonderful lady that brings 10 horses up for the week, and the kids get to learn to ride and take care of horses. Later this summer, we will have survivor camps, adventure camps. We always do a livestock camp. And new this year, we have an energy camp, so kids can come. They can learn about the coal industry, the power plants, natural gas, oil. They get to learn a little bit about a lot of things.
Oh, it's fantastic. And don't they also have a camp for military kids?
Usually they do. We don't this summer, but we always have the military camp. That one's a favorite of the counselors and all the people down at camp as well.
So tell us a little bit about when you see these kids come in on that first day and they're checking in and they're real nervous. Explain to us what they are like the last day, from when they get here to when they leave.
Okay, so it's a lot of fun to watch the kids because they come in, a lot of them are nervous. Some of them have never been away from home overnight before, but they get a chance, they make a lot of friends, they get to try a lot of new skills. And we just finished with horse camp this week, and it was amazing to watch the kids start from being kind of scared of the horse, nervous and unsure, to at the end they were riding it on their own, doing everything, even riding a horse that they weren't used to on their own. So it's really fun to watch them gain skills and also kind of develop some more self-confidence depending on the kid.
And I have firsthand knowledge of those horse camps because my daughters wanted to ride. We have horses. We have a ranch, but not the skills for like speed races. So anyway, we sent them up here as little girls, and they went into the barrels and the poles and the different things with the horses, and have come out of here as state champion pole bender, winning all kinds of titles and saddles. And it started right here in Washburn at a 4-H camp. So I can't say enough about getting your kids to 4-H camps. And like you said, even if they've never been around horses before, you have a camp. It's called I Wish I Had a Horse. Now it's already passed, so sign them up for next year.
Yep, and that camp does sell out really quick. So when they announce the dates, be sure and register really quick because it's usually sold out within a couple days.
Wow, so perhaps you need to open up another week?
We've talked about it. We just have to work with the lady that brings in all the horses to make sure that it works with her schedule, because like you, she has a ranch, so we gotta fit it in between haying and county fair and all those kinds of fun things.
Sure. And so tell us about the living quarters up here. Where do they camp in a tent? Do they stay in a bunkhouse? Tell us about that.
Okay, so all of the facilities at the 4-H camp either have been renovated or are brand new in the last 6 years. We have 3 cabins, the 3 original cabins and the dining hall. And then we also have the brand new Johns Rood Educational Facility. So that's meeting areas, it has the showers. That's actually their new storm shelter. They built the showers specifically to be safe, so if there is a storm, the kids have a place to go. And then there's 2 additional kind of staff cabins or overflow cabins. So we have enough space for about 100 people total to sleep down there.
Awesome. And so how do you guys staff it? Like who runs this? Like, do you have volunteers? Do you have paid staff? What is that like?
So the North Dakota Center for 4-H is the one who's kind of in charge of the day-to-day operations. But they hire between 5 to 7 counselors that are in charge of the kids, and then we have a cook. But a lot of time, the people that run the camps are actually extension agents from across the state. And so we volunteer to come and spend a week at camp. We kind of get to pick a camp we like and develop activities and things for the kids. So
Wonderful. And don't you also have a cooking camp up here?
we usually do have a cooking camp. That one is also really popular. We actually plant a garden at the camp with the goal that the produce will be used by the cooking school. And then all the cook uses some, and all the extra is actually donated to the resource center here in Washburn for people who need some fresh produce in the summer.
That's fantastic. So why do you think that site was chosen? I know it's along the river, but do you know the history of the site?
I do not, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
I just know that during the time there were a lot of cottonwood trees down there, and the storms, you know, when they come through, they pop up.
Yes.
And so sometimes those trees, the branches, you know, cottonwoods are notorious for falling branches during storms.
Yes.
So anyway, it is a safe place to go. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the 4-H camps?
You know, we have something for about everybody. If you're interested in cooking, if you're interested in science and technology, if you love being outdoors, we have our survivor and adventure camps. Typically we have a fishing camp and an archery camp. This weekend, actually, we have this coming weekend, we have a clover camp, so that's for our 5 to 8-year-olds. For a lot of them, it may be their first experience sleeping overnight, so a parent gets to come, and it's kind of a great experience for the parents and the kids to spend some one-on-one time together with other kids. And we've got a little bit of something for everybody.
And if I remember right, at the end of the day, there's always a campfire?
There's always a campfire. They also have a brand new water slide a couple years ago, and do mud pits. There's a lot of fun things, especially when it gets hot.
Yeah, so even if you're in a horse camp or something, there's other activities. It's not just about horses. So thank you so much, Calla. It's so great to hear from you and what North Dakota has to offer, and it's right here in Washburn, North Dakota. Back to you, ladies.
Thanks, Mary. I don't know about you, Carmen, but I want to go to camp.
I know.
I want to go to cooking camp, and I wish I had a horse, and maybe fishing.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. I didn't even know they did all that up there. And again, viewers, if you have any time that you went to one of these camps, we'd love to hear from you. You can you can see facebook.com. You can also go to our Beck email
Another
address.
view at beck.news.com.
Right. We love hearing from you, viewers. So we love your involvement. We do the show for you. So.
And there we go. There's the email. So yeah, write us and let us know if you've been to these camps, or suggest some other hometowns that we can go visit. We'd like to hear from you. And we'll be right back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
My Hometown is presented by the following: McLean County Implement, Mike Delson Farmers Union Insurance, Wagon Wheel Lumber.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Hi, it's me, Anthony Sullivan. And yes, you've actually caught me at home relaxing, because life's been pretty worry-free since I got coverage with American Residential Warranty.
You won't believe what ARW covers. Heating and air conditioning, washers and dryers, kitchen appliances, plumbing, water heaters, electrical systems, flat screens and laptops, even pools and spas, and so much more.
Call American Residential Warranty. They'll get you covered.
1-800-219-1467.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha.
The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness.
During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark.
Light up garbage-eating critters or spot thieves before they even get close.
Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars for just $39.99. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling atomic beam flashlight. Just pay a separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. This TV special offer is not available on Amazon. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-619-1091. That's 1-800-619-1091. Or visit BuyNightHero.com. That's BuyNightHero.com. Order now.
I'm Rick Becker from No Apologies. Welcome to your After Hours oasis of sanity. Watch us weeknights at 9 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Seniors, are you aware that you could pay less for your car insurance?
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
You might save a little, you might save a lot.
Maybe hundreds of dollars a year.
You might save 5% a year, maybe 10%, 15%, or even more.
That's a lot of money. So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
1-800-699-0761. 1-800-699-0761.
My Hometown is presented by the following: McLean County Implement, Mike Delson, Farmers Union Insurance, Wagon Wheel Lumber.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And before we go to the next segment, which is going to be a real exciting one, they all have been, I think. I'd like to thank our sponsors for this edition of My Hometown. We have Scott's Hardware, Roland Rebel Boutique, The Weathered Silo Lindo Law Office, Frontier Floral, Cornerstone Nutrition, Quilting for You, Washburn Auto Body, River Ag, Cafe 77, McLean County Implement, Mike Nelson, Farmers Union Insurance, and Wagon Wheel Lumber. And with that, we'll go right back to you, Mary.
Well, this segment we have set aside for Mr. Clint Hill, and he is a resident of Washburn. Welcome to the show, Clint.
Thank you. It's nice to be able to talk to some people from North Dakota.
Perfect. You know, we're doing this hometown series, and I went to Washburn, and everybody kept saying, well, have you talked to Clint Hill? Have you talked to Clint Hill? And I said, no, but that is who I need to talk to. You're quite famous up in Washburn, but just tell us a little bit about your roots in Washburn.
Well, I was born up in Larimer, North Dakota, but my biological mother couldn't care for me. She had had 5 children previously. And so she turned me over to the North Dakota Children's Home, and I was adopted from the North Dakota Children's Home by Chris and Jenny Hill, who had a home in Washburn. They had previously adopted a little girl, Janice. And so now I was the second child in their family, and that was in 1932. So I was brought to Washburn, baptized there in the First Lutheran Church, grew up in Washburn, grade school, high school, had a wonderful upbringing. It was a fantastic town, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. It's still, I consider it's my hometown.
Wonderful. You know, there is a lot of history that goes along with Washburn. It's founded by the ferry boats, more so than the railroad, and Fort Mandan and everything. But how did a small town boy from Washburn, North Dakota get involved with the Secret Service?
Well, that wasn't my intent. When I left Washburn in 1950 to go to college at Concordia in Moorhead, Minnesota, my intention was to study, become a history teacher, and to coach athletics. But then the Korean War started, and I was on the draft list. They let me graduate in college, and then they drafted me, and they sent me to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training. And after a series of tests, I was selected to go to the Army Intelligence Center and be trained as a counterintelligence agent. And I was then finished that schooling, was sent out into the field, and I ended up in Denver, Colorado, where I served as a counterintelligence agent. When I finished my military service, I was looking around for something to do, and I considered going back into the teaching profession. I went back to North Dakota and took a check of, what's possible, and it just didn't seem likely that I was going to be very happy teaching school, because I really loved the work I'd been doing for the Counterintelligence Corps. So I went back to Denver, applied to the Secret Service, and I was accepted. And I entered the Secret Service in Denver on September 22nd, 1958. And I was in their office in Denver for 1 year, and then I was selected to go to the White House and assigned to the White House detail with President Eisenhower as a president at that time.
Okay.
So that's how I got into the Secret Service. It wasn't my original idea. I just, because of my experience after I left college with the counterintelligence corps, that I decided that's where I wanted to go.
Well, and it sounds like God knew what he was doing by putting one of the strongest and bravest men in position in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. I know we can't go into all the details in this segment, but I just want our viewers to know that you're going to come back and tell us a little bit more about what had happened down in Dallas during the assassination. But you are living where now? Out in California?
I'm out in California, yes, just north of San Francisco, across the Golden Gate Bridge, along the near the Bay of San Francisco. So it's a wonderful place, a great climate for me. I love never too warm, never too cold, just great.
And we only have a few seconds left, but when was the last time you were in Washburn?
I think it was at the time that I was honored with the Teddy Roosevelt Rough Rider Award.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to be right back after this, and stay tuned for later on in the week where we're going to finish the interview with Clint Hill.
Thank you very much.
Back to you. Thank you.
And that interview is going to be on tomorrow. Carmen, I know you were a part of it, right?
Yes, yes.
Just fascinating.
It's fascinating. It's
right.
Beyond. And yeah.
So you don't want to miss it tomorrow, the interview with Clint Hill. We'll talk a lot more about what he went through during that day when JFK was attempted assassination. And I want to put in here very quickly that the courthouse in Washburn is due to be torn down unless they can raise money to repair it. It's 120 years old. And I don't know exactly, I would contact the city council or the county commission and find out where, if you want to give donations for that. But thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you tomorrow with Ladies of Another View on Beck.